It's now time to mark out the coaming recess pattern from the set of plans. So the coaming recess will be a big oval that's cut out, and I'm going to fill in, for the most part, the coaming recess area into which the actual cockpit opening will be cut. So I've got a half pattern here, and I've just traced one side and then flipped the pattern using the center line on the paper here, marking it up with the center line on the boat. Happy with the shape of my coaming recess cutout. Now I'm just going to add a thin strip of dark cedar around the edge. Again, I kind of like it because it makes a differentiation between the different colors of wood going in different directions. Next up is to cross plank the coaming recess, and I'm going to use some darker red cedar here. And the first one is the tricky one. I want to get it perpendicular to center line, that first strip, so all the rest will follow, and I can work from the stern and the bow at the same time and work towards the middle. So I've taken a piece of cedar, laid it over top, trace the line underneath, and using my disc sander and hand sander, I have just I think I've got it ready to go into there. Now I don't want to be forcing this into here and creating that piece to kind of arc, because then all the rest of the pieces kind of have to do the same thing. I think I've got a pretty nice fit, and there's a bit of a bevel here. The strips are starting to kind of face or head downwards, and then they'll head upwards to the bow. What I'm going to do is put glue on the piece, put the accelerant on the boat, and just get this in the right place. In addition to filling in the coaming recess on the kayak deck, I'm also going to work on the inlay of the company logo, the Orca. I'm just going to be putting in the actual whale itself, not the lettering. I've done this about, I don't know, 20 times now on various boats I've built. People like to see it in the boats. What I end up doing is putting together, I guess really is like a puzzle. I make several pieces. I don't make all of the black pieces out of walnut here. At the same time, I make the tail, I make the body, I make the head, and this piece here, and then start to assemble it when the 4 pieces are made. So it's straightforward. It's just going to take some walnut here. I put down some carbon paper underneath, make sure it fits on that board. That fits on there, and then working really hard on the carbon paper. I'm just going to trace out the outside profile of that piece. Okay, so that's all of the black. Now the hardest one to sort of do is the teeth in here. I make that separately and then fit it into the hole. And it should be noted that this wood is much thicker than the deck, because there is a camber to the deck itself. So if I just make it a 1/4 inch thick and lay it into there and then try to sand it smooth, it won't be thick enough. So I'm going with a little over 1/2 inch thick of lumber here. So that when I put it in, straight in, I can sand the artwork flush with the deck. So I'm just going to use my little table mount bandsaw here. It's got a little tiny 1/8 blade in there. I did have a scroll saw many years back. I never really used it much, and I never really liked it all that much. It was very noisy and vibrated a lot. It really needed to be anchored down a lot. So I just ended up selling it. So this little bandsaw works great for just cutting around sharper corners. Alright, so I've roughly cut out these pieces. Now they're going to do some, so the head will go sort of into there like that, the tail will sit in there like so. Now I just need to, I'll drill out some of these and I'll have to do scroll saw to get those pieces in. This will be the first section going together. I'm just going to, I've thickened up some epoxy with some sawdust and fillers, making it kind of dark like the wood. It's going to be a lot easier to sort of match the dark wood with the epoxy filler than the yellow cedar. So in there. So I'm just laying it down on some wax paper here, and then I can just push this in. It should go in, and I went in once. And it should slide in a little easier with kind of wet epoxy on there. Now I want to make sure these things are not too tight in there, because if I hammer them in, I could just split across the wood here. So these down and flush. The teeth I just glued together a piece of yellow cedar and the padauk, and then I've cut it into smaller pieces, and I'm just going to join this together now with crazy glue or CA glue to create the rough outline of the teeth. This is kind of the smallest section that requires finicky little pieces. So when that's glued up, then I can just cut out sort of this section and fit it into the mouth opening. So I've just given that a quick sanding on the belt sander. So when the teeth are in, the tail will go there. I need to shape it. The head goes there. And the teeth will be in. Now the little tiny dots I will do after I put it into the deck, and then sand it smooth with the deck, and then I'll just put some plugs in. As I near the completion of filling in the coaming recess here, I'm down to the last few pieces, and we're working with bead and cove. Now if I put the last one in here, I'm going to have a little sliver in here. I don't know whether that will be terribly obvious. So what I'll end up doing is making these last two pieces approximately the same size. So I don't know what that's going to be. That's going to be probably half a strip. I could probably just shave a little bit off of this one and make the last 3 strips of equal size, and I don't think it'll be as obvious. Now I've also got the bead and cove on here, so the last piece going in will be very difficult to manufacture on bead and cove. So what I'm going to end up doing is when I put this piece in and these 2 pieces in, I will take off the bead and cove, or sorry, the bead on those outer edges. The last piece going in will be sort of a wedge shape and a square edge. I'm just going to shave off the block plane. I've also shaved this piece a little bit thinner on this outer edge, because the last piece is going to go in through here, and I'm just going to create sort of a wedge, a tapered piece that'll just jam in and hold everything in place. So as this little wedge just tightens in there, this means we've cut the right angle, but it's not going to go all the way in. Okay, that's going to be it. Now I just have to sort out the shape on the end there. The last piece of the puzzle in completing the deck, getting it ready for fiberglassing, is putting in the Orca logo. So I've just kind of centered it. Now I want it back far enough because there'll probably be a bungee cord wrapping sort of through here, so I want to kind of center it in the middle of it. And I'm just looking down the center line here, thinking, that if that is, perpendicular to the center line, that we're probably right about there. So I'm just going to trace this out with a very sharp pencil. I'll just start by drilling a couple of holes in here, big enough for my jigsaw to go through. A couple of spaced places here so I can start and finish certain areas. I'm using a very thin blade so I can make sharp corners with it. Now I could have probably would have been better maybe to put some masking tape down and draw on that. And then it's less likely to kind of rip the wood and shred, but I've not found it to be too bad. I just don't want to have the upswing of the blade, which is the cutting movement of the blade, can end up tearing wood out. So I'm going to go well inside the line, and we'll work on that and make sure it fits in. Okay, that's always a little bit scary, but now it's a matter of just I'm going to use my Dremel and sand these edges here till this will just squeak in the opening. bit of epoxy to the edge here where the end grain of these strips will really want to suck up a lot of epoxy. Just, and also to make sure that all of that's sealed well. The remainder of the epoxy I have just thickened up with some fillers, and I kind of like a nice dark black line, so I've added just the tiniest bit of graphite, and that will darken it right up. Most of this will all be sanded away when it comes time to sanding and fairing the deck. So as much as it really looks outstanding now, by the time we press this in there and sand everything, that black line is going to be extremely small. So I'm putting it on to the Orca so that as I push it in, the epoxy is not going to get pushed into the boat, but it's going to get pushed out to the deck side as it slides in, and then I can clean it up. I can try and tap it in, but I don't want to force it in and misshape the deck, so I just want this to slide in and maintain the shape of the deck itself. Now we know it's going to be higher on the outside edges because it's cambered on the top, so I'm trying to get the center down as low as possible. And I'm just going to take a small stick shaped like a chisel, and I can just go in here and scrape out the excess. I think that's all we'll cover in this episode. Now that the deck is done and all the pieces are in the next episode I'll get to sanding and fairing and fiberglassing the deck. So thank you very much for watching. Stay tuned for the next episode. See you next time.